Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope you guys have been having a great Monday evening and got you an update on what is going on with the weather. Going forward, we're just going to really start to take a look at the second half of March, not all the way to the end of the month, but we're really going to start to take a look at the next 7 to 10 days to try to figure out what's going to happen here in the weather world as things has kind of slowed down. It's kind of active right now in northeast Texas as there are severe thunderstorms producing a lot of hail. In fact, there's one tornado warned storm that we're going to briefly mention here in the beginning of this video. But we're going to talk about the chances of some severe weather episodes coming up here in the near future. Near future meaning the next 7 to 10 days. Nothing set in stone, but there is a couple systems that we need to begin to watch, not necessarily talk to death, but definitely watch. So if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Appreciate the amazing support as always. And if you guys got anything I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it. Gives others an opportunity to do so too. And all can look out for one another and glorify God doing it. So let's quickly take a look at what's going on in Texas because there is some, they were supercells, but they're kind of starting to congeal into one line just east of Dallas now. But there is a tornado warned storm just northeast of Dallas. There is some tightening going on with the storm. You can see in the velocity scan. In fact, I'll go on and click it. I'll remind you guys I'm making this video at around 7:45 Eastern Standard Time. So obviously there's a chance that this, well, less likely the tornado warning will either be dropped or stun moved more northeast. But you see these two differences in color right here. That is telling us where there's a little bit of circulation going, a rotation going on with the storm. So there's a chance there's a tornado on the ground here, or at least it's a radar indicated tornado, which doesn't mean there's a tornado on the ground. It means that conditions are definitely favorable that there could be one. So be careful just northeast of Dallas. But either way, these storms will continue to march eastward. They will continue to form more into a line of storms and have a chance to produce obviously heavy rain, and large hail is the biggest potential. So if you're ahead of this line here east in far northeast Texas, getting into portions of northwest Louisiana, southwest Arkansas, definitely try to put your car maybe under something. If you got a carport or garage, definitely try to get it under something so you don't take any hail damage from these storms, which could produce some large hail. But really breaking away from that, we'll take a look at what is going to go on with this line of storms as we move forward. Let's go on and back this up. I'm a little bit too far ahead. We'll start it at around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So obviously you folks in Louisiana and Arkansas, you're in around 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So as these lines continue to move forward through the evening hours, it's likely going to be a rocky evening for folks into Arkansas, northern Louisiana. As these storms move through, they will hold its own as basically a cutoff low, upper level low, low pressure, continues to pivot southeast and then move east throughout the deep south and the southeast later in the week, and with it will produce a lot of heavy rain overnight into the wee hours of the morning. It's going to be a very rainy morning for your start Louisiana, Baton Rouge, southern sections of Mississippi going to be experiencing some nasty weather as you're waking up tomorrow morning. Maybe some severe storms, damaging wind threat could definitely be here. There's going to be a very small tornado risk down here also, a 2% risk getting into tomorrow. So we need to watch out. There's going to be a marginal risk in Florida, and severe weather could definitely occur here. I'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow with the Tuesday weather forecast and give you the latest and greatest information on that. So stay tuned. If you're in Florida and you're worried, I don't obviously think this is going to be a severe weather outbreak at all. In fact, it's trended down where you guys did have a slight risk, say 24 hours ago. You only have a marginal risk in portions of north central Florida for tomorrow. But going forward here, we're going to talk about what's going on with the pattern, really getting into, this week into next week. This is what's going on right now. This looks like an oddball. We call this a little bit of a bowling ball or a cutoff low. You got ridging on top of this blue. So orange on top of this blue. This is basically ridging or ridge of high pressure building, meaning you can have above average temperatures in these areas. So if you go back in time, this was actually, and this is in the past, this was this morning, you had this low pressure getting cut off from the mainstream of things, which is up here. You got the jet way up here in southern Canada now, and this is what you call a cut-off low, and it really actually is something that is cut off from the mainstream of energy here. And these can kind of meander. They usually move very slowly. Sometimes they'll take a week to get out the picture here in the lower 48 weather-wise. But this is what this will do. You getting into Tuesday afternoon, this is still pivoting, and really out ahead of this is where it can cause some nasty weather. So just to its east is what it's going to do. It's going to pivot nasty storms into Florida tomorrow and just be really rainy across southern areas of Mississippi, Alabama, and South Georgia. And this will continue to pivot through the southeast as we're getting into our Wednesday. So I really think maybe Georgia and the Carolinas could see some nasty weather, just some storms and rain. I don't think there's really going to be much in the way of any severe weather, as you have more of a stable atmosphere. The dew points are kind of low, and you have a lot of dry air to deal with. It's not going to be anything crazy to really talk about as far as severe weather. But going forward here, you continue to watch this. You got these upper level lows that kind of dig down here to the southeast and to the south central U.S. And with it brings some, not necessarily nasty weather, but some weather can cause some issues, just some rain, some storms. But as these keep digging down, what happens is it causes basically a wind flow out the southwest or south, and it causes that warm, moist air to come out the Gulf of Mexico. Therefore, that's just one ingredient for severe weather. That doesn't mean you have a whole lot of other ingredients. It's just one ingredient. You basically have to have kinematics in place, which is that wind energy too. And then you have to have convective energy, which is that CAPE, that storm juice. And then obviously you need to have some manageable surface temperatures. You're not going to have a lot of severe weather with temperatures in the 50s or low 60s. You certainly can, but obviously the chances are a little bit lower. But we're getting into Friday. You have another low pressure here in the Mid-South and the Mississippi Valley, getting kind of meandering into the Ohio Valley, into Kentucky. This will probably bring some storms. And then we really watch, and we're looking at the European, we really watch this system. This is your classic look for severe weather. Granted, this is literally about a week out, so confidence is not high at all on something like this happening. But there is some agreement on the GFS and the Euro that there's going to be some kind of storm system around this time next week that we're going to be checking out and monitoring for sure. But this is a classic bowling ball of an upper level low or cutoff low. It pivots down. It pulls that warm, moist air out the Gulf of Mexico. It's probably going to cause a surge in convective energy somewhere in the south central U.S. as we're getting into next Monday evening. But is there going to be severe weather? We don't know. But this is definitely kind of not a scary look, but a look that we definitely start to focus on for severe weather, as you have differences in heights and basically not necessarily a trough, but definitely some kind of upper level low that pivots through here. And then based off the operational European model, it becomes negatively tilted. You see how these isobars are bowing out this way? That is a negative tilt. If they were bowing out that way, that is a positive tilt. And we've talked about this before. When you get a negatively tilted trough, that causes more dynamics in the system, whether you're talking about snow, whether you're talking about severe weather. There'll be no, snow in the south for this one. That I know that for sure. But this could definitely watch out for some severe weather as we're getting into about 7 to 8 days from now. It's something we need to watch here. And in response to these cutoff lows, and we're going to start this off for around Thursday midday, you see the dew points in the 50s. There's a little bit of juice in the air, but it's not enough to really say, it's very humid outside. But there is starting to get a little bit of humidity building into the eastern U.S. And on average, as you push closer to April, you start to see more and more spikes of humidity and higher dew points as you're starting to transition seasons. And that's what happens when you transition seasons. You normally have more severe weather threats. And this is one thing you really look at. You look at it too when you're starting to end summer and getting into early fall. When you still have dew points in the 60s and 70s into the southeast and eastern U.S., you start to look for those lower dew points. Basically those brief cold fronts that cool us down and make it feel like those nice fall days in September in the southeast when you're starting to get hints of that fall weather. It's kind of the opposite for spring. You obviously are still dealing with really dry air, dew points in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but then you have brief spikes in dew points. And here comes one right here. And it happens in response to these upper level lows or cutoff lows that digs into the southwest, south central U.S., and it yanks this moist air out the Gulf of Mexico, which that moist air is I keep struggling with the word ingredient for some reason, but it's an ingredient for severe weather when you had those dew points starting to get into the 60s, and definitely when you're getting to the 70s. You need other factors also to create a severe weather outbreak or just severe weather in general. You need kinematics in place, which is the wind energy. Do you have some kind of low-level jet or mid-level jet in place? Normally, you probably have something if you're having a cutoff low digging into the south central U.S. or wherever it's digging in general. But, do you have the convective energy? Remember, if you have a stout kinematics, if you have decent dew points in place, normally, if you just add a little bit of convective energy, meaning CAPE values of 1,000 joules per kilogram, then each couple of hundreds that you add to that really starts to build a severe weather threat. So that's some things we look at. And in general, as we're getting into this Friday, you have a surge of dew points right here into the deep areas of the southeast. And I really think there will be some kind of disturbance into this area. Then there will be some stormy conditions, probably Friday, something going on in the southeast. I don't think there's going to be much in the way of severe weather because there's not a lot of other ingredients coming together for this, but it's something to watch. This clears out, stabilizes the atmosphere for the southeast over probably the weekend to early next week, and then here you go. This is this big system starting to show up on the European. A big spike in dew points gets into the south central U.S., Louisiana, eastern areas of Texas, and that is what we call a dry line, which means you have those very dry temperatures on one side of this dry line and the very moist temperatures. And the clashing of those two air masses normally spells trouble for some kind of severe weather. In fact, it's happening in Texas as we speak. It's just not that tight of a gradient as far as super, super dry air and then very moist air. But moving forward here, this is a big spike in dew points as you're getting into Tuesday morning of next week. These are dew points starting to spike into the values of the 60s and 70s, and this is what spells trouble for that really moist air. And then it moves on through here as we're getting into midway next week. But you look at these systems in general, and we keep this going forward. Watch this system right here. This is the system Friday, a little bit of stormy weather for the deep areas of the south. I think there will be some severe weather with this, but the orientation of this low pressure just really isn't there. You're not getting a giant pool of higher dew points closer to this low pressure. Well, there will be a little bit of a low-level jet right up here. And the two ingredients, the kinematics and the thermodynamics that you need, are not really coming together to have any kind of severe weather threat. So it really just becomes probably some snow for the interior northeast as we're getting into this weekend. So maybe a little bit more of that March snow for Maine, interior areas of New Hampshire, Vermont, New York State. And we'll watch that system here in time. But this is the big system showing up on the European model. Here comes this stout cutoff low. It kind of dips down to the south central U.S. Ahead of it, you have a low-level jet and you have storms in general. That's why I like Pivotal Weather. It does a good job of showing you where basically the heaviest returns are as far as moisture. And then you have some nasty severe weather as this low pressure pivots to the western areas of the Ohio Valley. And then you have some kind of storm action with some wind energy at bay here, dew points spiking to the 60s, pushing the 70s for certain areas. And then you have a severe weather threat showing up from the mid-south, maybe areas of the deep south, as you're getting into midway next week. But nothing set in stone, not even close. It's just something we're watching for now. You look at the GFS for the same system. Here comes this first system as we're getting into early this week. There's already disagreements just on this system. We're 100 hours out. The European has this low pressure a little bit further south, but either way, I don't think this is going to be a big deal for anybody. This system moving into basically into this weekend. But then we look for that big system that the European showing, and the GFS has it also, but it has the low pressure basically shooting across the Midwest, as the Euro has it really shooting across, the south central U.S., the mid-south, and portions of the southern Ohio Valley. And that makes a big difference. That the GFS will bring severe weather for maybe more areas of the Ohio Valley, northern sections of the mid-south, and really just depends on that moisture return here. And we look at dew points on the GFS, and like I thought it was going to show, it shows it's yanking that moist air out the Gulf all the way into the Ohio Valley. and you're going to probably have some kind of low-level jet at place here. And, you know, I'm talking of this as it's going to happen, but, you know, we don't know what's going to happen 204 hours out. But it's just an example of how active I think it's going to get as we get into early next week. I think we're really going to have some kind of severe weather event to probably talk to. But you look at this too, and you look at that low-level jet flying across the areas of the Ohio Valley, and that spells trouble for sure, especially with those dew points getting into the 60s. But, you know, you look at the 500 millibar wind streams here, and you can see what's going on here as far as that 500 millibar jet setting up here. And you can see the pieces of energy dipping down. Some wind energy here, right here in Friday, that dips down. And then it shows the real digging here off the European of this bowling ball of a cutoff low that digs into the south central U.S. and then really becomes negatively tilted right here as we're getting into Wednesday afternoon of next week. 222 hours out. It's probably not even responsible for me to show you guys this, but it's not me telling you there's going to be a severe weather outbreak next week, but I'm telling you it's an area of interest for our next time frame to watch for a more significant severe weather threat. And this is definitely a negatively tilted trough, and it's a dangerous look for sure. But we'll continue to watch out here. That's a stout 70, 80 knot jet setting up over areas of the southeast. So it's just something we need to really pay attention to. And the GFS, you know, shows it well here too, but it definitely shows a different location. It shows this really digging here, just like the Euro does for early next Monday morning. But then it shoots this low pressure across the Midwest and really puts the nastiest weather in this section right here of the country, as the Euro puts the nasty weather down here as we're getting into midweek next week. So it's definitely a difference here, and I'm not trying to zone in on one system, but I really think there's going to be a bigger system next week that we're really going to end up having to watch for any kind of significant severe weather outbreak. But you look at that low-level jet showing up for the Euro, just for example, and that is a nasty low-level jet. And I think I mistakenly called this a low-level jet here. I meant to say mid-level jet, which is winds at the mid-levels of you know, pushing well over 80 knots here. This is the low-level jet pushing 70, 80 knots over the Carolinas as you're getting into Wednesday morning. But, you know, nothing's set in stone. Next Wednesday morning. So, but no time frame, no day is set in stone. This is all just something to watch, guys. So we'll continue to talk about this. We're not going to talk it to death, but I feel like severe weather obviously affects people's safety a heck of a lot more than winter weather overall. So it's definitely something we need to talk about and mention. And but that's all I got, guys. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow, and we'll mention the severe weather possibilities in Florida. God bless all y'all, and have a good night.